All right, students, I have put together I'm going to be putting together a quick video that goes through and talks about how to be able to create a grad announcement in InDesign. This is InDesign. This is the startup screen for this. Just very much like all the other Adobe products. It starts out giving you the option of being able to open an existing document or creating a new document. InDesign is a very powerful program, so it has capabilities of being able to create documents for the web or for print. In this case, we're going to be creating something for print, and so we're going to go to Create New. And it opens up a document that allows us to be able to go through, and as you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, or right here, it gives us a preview option of being able to see how we change the attributes here. We'll be able to change on what's happening behind us. We can pick this up and look at it and make sure that's the direction that we want to go. Right now, just because you're more familiar with dealing with inches than picas or points, let's go to inches. And as you can see, it has our measurements already set up for us. So from the instructions in Canvas, you can see that it's supposed to be a 5 by 7. You can change it backwards and forwards, horizontal, vertical, depending on however way you want to set up this document. On columns, because we're just dealing with, we're not going to be dealing with multiple columns of text, we're just going to be dealing with one. This is dealing with more of the spacing in between the columns. And so in this case, we're not going to have to necessarily we aren't going to need to deal with gutters. Margins, we are, and in this case, let's go to 1/4 of an inch on all sides. In this particular example, we are going to deal with bleeds, and bleeding only happens when you're going to be taking your illustration or photography all the way to the edge of your printed piece. What this does is it's actually, the image goes over the edge so that the cutter or the printer can cut off the edges and making sure that there is no white area on it. So in this case, we want to go beyond the 5 by 7, and we're going to go an 1/8 of an inch farther. So an 1/8 of an inch on all sides, and then we say create. And by the preview, it looks like everything looks good. We go create. All right, so this is our artboard. You can see over on the left-hand corner, very similar to Photoshop and InDesign. However, there are some important tools that are very different than Photoshop and I said InDesign, but I meant Illustrator. The tools that are very different are the population tool. This is collecting information. It's a tool that collects information and then helps you distribute it. This is the gap tool. So if you have multiple pictures, you can create a gap in between those and make them exact. In this particular assignment, we're going to be dealing primarily with this tool, which is the type tool, which is very similar to both Photoshop and Illustrator. And we're going to be using this tool right here, which is the rectangle frame tool. What this tool is used for is that with InDesign, you're going to be making a lot of different documents. It's really helpful to have something to be a placeholder for pictures. So you might have thousands of pictures, and instead of saving it into a program, what it does is it partitions those out. So you can have your photographs saved in a completely different area than your document, and it makes it so the document works faster. And in this case, I am going to make this placeholder right here. As you can see, I'm going all the way to my bleed line, which is the red line. This is the document, and this is my margin. So I'm going all the way to the end, and I want my picture to be within this blue box that I've just created, which is the placeholder box. I go under File, I go under Place, I go to where I saved my document, which is in my Google Drive. And I'm going to go into my graphics folder. I'm going to go under my lecture material. And I want to go into my grad announcements. And I want to go to my pictures. I'm going to grab a picture of a model of a dog. And as you can see, I've got this picture going. And you can see that the edge of this picture, I had to make it a little bit bigger. I went into Photoshop and made it a little bit bigger to fit in this. But as you can see, I just don't want this white space. So I'm going to make this image bigger. So I'm going to go to my selection tool, hover over the middle, and click on it. And as you can see, this red box that goes around it, that shows the bounding box for my picture. I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to start making that thing bigger so it fits right where I want it. That is pretty close. I want this a little bit up because I'm going to put some text down here. I want there to be plenty of space up on top for the graduation. Right where, there. Okay, so it looks pretty good. I've got space down here that I can put some contact info or some added information. And then I'm going to make my announcement up here. And this is really nice right here because the photographer did a good job of blurring out this area. And it's generally the same tone. And so being able to create something up here that's going to be easily read is going to be really nice. And I've got tons of room up here to be able to do that. So very common right now within grad announcements is to do something that's handwritten. As you're going to study in this particular unit, we call that script, or it looks like it's been handwritten with a pen or a pencil or a brush or whatever. So I'm going to go into here. I'm going to pull up the fonts. At this point, you should be a little bit familiar with DeFont in that we use it for the type classification exercise. As you can see over here, we have script and we have some basic fonts, sans serif, serif. In this case, we're just going to be dealing with the script. Let's go into handwritten. Something that's really super handy is that I can go over here and go preview, and I can say graduation. And I can look at this, and I can go through and start what? Sorry, I need to return. And it gives me a preview of what it's going to look like. And so without spending a ton of time, I went through this previously, found a font that I liked, and I went in and downloaded it. So to be able to do this, you hit download, pulls up a screen here. In this case, if I was going to be downloading this particular font, I would go back into my Google Drive, go on to the place where I save my other thing, and I want lecture materials. And what I like to do to make things really organized, and I would recommend it to you guys, is to go in graduate announcements and make a folder specifically for fonts. I've already saved my font here, but this is if I was going to be saving this. So I would say save. And that would save that font to that particular folder. I'm going to go back in and go to my Google Drive, go to my Drive, go to my lecture material, go under my graduation announcements, go to my pictures, excuse me, my fonts, and you have this right here, my zip file. And a zip file is a compressed file, and all you have to do to uncompress it is to double click it. If I double click it, it opens it up. As you can see that file right there, it's it opened up, and I'm looking for two different kinds of fonts, font styles. One is the TTF or the OTF file. And it doesn't really matter which one you use, but you just want to double click on it. So double clicking on it will open up the font. And by opening up the font, it'll say install font right up here. And then you can install the font. And it'll install that font. In this case, it's this font. I'm not really wanting to do this, I just did it for the demonstration, but this is that font. But I am interested in the other font, which I believe is this one right here. Melina Berlin, whatever that is. All right, so now I'm ready to go back in. I go back into InDesign. I go to my text box. I go up to my margin. I don't want it to go any farther than my margin. I don't want it to go any farther than the bottom of her head. So I'm going to create the box for me to be able to do this. Now let's go to the attributes of the font. I'm going to click on this for the fill. I know that it's white. I don't want to have a stroke on it. I'm going to go through and fix up the size, the point size in a bit. But let's go through and get my font. So Mel, there it is right there. So I click on it. Let's make it just a little bit bigger so I can see it. There it is right there, and so I can start creating my font graph. What are we going to put here? Let's put graduates. Go in, let's make it bigger. I don't want to make it too big because I want to put the class of something underneath it. All right, that's going to work. So I got graduates. I'm going to create another box. And to be able to create the contrast from the graduate to everything else, I want to put into a sans serif font. But I'm going to go through and I'm going to change the attributes. Let's make it white again. And I know that I want it to be a sans serif font, meaning that it doesn't have the little swoops on the end of the strokes. And so one of my favorites is Futura Medium. I like a lot. Something that's nice about these Adobe products is that if I go in here and I say I want to look at a font, I can go in here, click that little button right there. It goes through and gives me filters. So I can go in, do a sans serif font, a serif font, a slab serif font, scripts. You can go through and it goes through and creates filters for those, as well as bold fonts, condensed fonts. And it go through all these different ones that you can go through and create filters of the fonts that you want. If you don't see the font that you want, then you can go in and go into more. And what this is to activate Adobe Fonts install. And this allows you to be able to go through these Adobe fonts. You can click on these and download it off of the web and be able to find additional fonts. These are registered fonts. The fonts from DeFont are not registered. So if you're a graphic designer, you would want to gravitate towards something like this because these are through the school district. We have an account with Adobe, allows us to get these Adobe fonts, which makes it legal. But for the demonstration, I'm using DeFont to be able to go through and do your grad announcement. So let's go back to this. So I'm going through and I'm going to create this. I've got my font, medium. I'm going to go through and look at my font size. The stroke, the fill, it doesn't have a fill. Let's give it a white. I don't want to do the bounding box on that. I just want the font. All right. So we've got the fill, looks good. So I'm going to go in and say class. I want this all caps, class. of